It's Yahoo Sports Jake Mintz. Jake, how's it going?
Another beautiful day in paradise. Thank you folks for having me.
We're excited to have you. It is literally a beautiful day. We're here at Seahawks headquarters, and the Mariners are in beautiful weather, I guess, in Arizona. If only we were seeing some beautiful offense, but we're not. I'm going to start with kind of the turn that this team has had on offense. I know that you and Jordan were talking a bit, obviously, to start the year about what the Mariners were doing, whether or not it was here to last, and it seems like the only thing here to last has been Cal, because everyone else has cooled off. Tell me what you're seeing offensively from Seattle.
They're not controlling the zone. You know, that's been a big mantra for this group on both sides of the baseball over the last couple of years. And I think one of the reasons that there was optimism about the Mariners in the first month was that they were walking a lot and they weren't striking out that much. That has really changed. That strikeout to walk number has backed up month over month. And now so far in June, it is just like the worst in baseball so far in June, ahead of only the Rockies, which doesn't really count. But yes, Cal Raleigh cannot do everything on this baseball team as much as he will try to do that.
What's more surprising to you, the start that the Mariners had or the place they are today?
It's a great question. Here's a boring answer. Anything in a small sample in baseball, it's hard to be too surprised by. I think, however, I would say their start. Just because it wasn't like they were okay offensively. It was jaw-droppingly awesome. Now, I think we all maybe felt that the Jorge Polanco God-level 3 weeks had an expiration date on it, and I think that's certainly the case. But the rest of this offense besides Cal really has taken quite a step back, but it's in line with what we've seen from this group over the last number of years.
I shouldn't say defense, but one piece of context that I always hear if we're ever critical about the Mariners is, well, Jerry Dipoto in that front office kind of has one arm behind their back, like they're on a limited budget. And I can understand the argument. However, Jake, as you know, when we're talking about, oh, they can't spend like the Dodgers, really only the Dodgers do. And then beyond them, you have like the Mets, who are big spenders. Obviously, a couple other teams in there, the Yankees. But it's not like these teams are winning the World Series every single year. There are many teams that are not top 3 or even top 5 spenders in baseball that go on to win a World Series, even though there's a correlation between spending and winning. Where can the Mariners find themselves? Like, where are they missing the mark?
So the way I try and describe money in baseball, it's really money in life. Right? Money cannot buy you happiness, but man, it can help. You know, like it's not a bad thing. And I think that is the case in baseball. The Mariners, what is frustrating about them is that they have done a lot right that should, in theory, allow them to open up spending. So what I mean by that is the pitching staff is young and cheap and controllable, besides Luis Castillo. And that's the type of unit that so many other teams across baseball would love to have. And you would think that that would almost motivate the Mariners to kind of put their foot down and make the most of this particular window. And I think that, you know, the Cal extension and the Julio extension are important data points. But no matter when you watch this team, they always feel like they're just 1 or 2 more adult hitters away. Now, I think that they are going to be fairly aggressive at the deadline this year and will go out and add a bat. I think first base is kind of an obvious place to go and do that. Baltimore's Ryan O'Hearn feels like a really comfy fit there. But, yeah, like I think it's totally fair for fans to remain frustrated because they've accomplished the hard part in a lot of ways. And it's also okay to be frustrated at these other teams that are spending a lot of money. I don't think that it's a bad thing. I think the more money that flows into the sport is good for the sport. But it's also tough to, like, I'm not going to tell a Mariners fan not to be frustrated at what the Dodgers are doing. Like, it's frustrating.
You said adult hitters. So we have some adolescent hitters in this lineup right now, in Williamson and Young. What do you see from them? What do you project from those guys? I know it's early, just a little sample size, just your analysis on them.
Well, I mean, they're a little bit different. You know, Young has a lot more prospect pedigree, and I think with time can become a good contributor. I think with any player, particularly offensive player, there are guys that you can win with and guys that you can win because of, if that makes sense. And I think that Cal and Julio are guys that you win because of. And I'm not sure how many other offensive pieces the Mariners have in that regard. Now, they do have a lot of talent percolating up through the system on the offensive side. Cole Young is kind of one of the first players in this next wave. So I think how he adjusts is really important. Williamson, I see more as like a valuable bench piece more than a guy who should be starting every day at third base.
You mentioned Ryan O'Hearn, and you're certainly not the first person I've heard mention him as a potential target for the Mariners. It makes a lot of sense, obviously, with what they need. In a seller's market, are we looking at an uncomfortable price tag? What kind of trade does that guy command?
So, not that much. He's a first baseman with 2.5 months of control, 2 months, 2.5 if you make the playoffs, right? So I don't think it'll break the bank. It certainly is going to be a seller's market because there is no obvious needle-moving superstar that's going to get dealt this year. And I think that's important to understand, is that all the best free agents for this upcoming class, Kyle Tucker, Pete Alonso, Alex Bregman, Framber Valdez, pitcher for the Astros, they're all on contending teams or teams that plan to contend. And so there's no bad team with big deal player looking to move that guy. We saw a lot of that last year. The selling teams a year ago, that was the Marlins, the White Sox, the Pirates a little bit, they sold last year and they didn't really get like a new round of players to sell. So I don't think it's going to be quiet. I just don't think this deadline season is going to be necessarily headline grabbing. But specifically to your question, O'Hearn is someone who should not break the bank as far as prospects go.
Any concerns about the rotation as it stands right now? It's unfortunate Miller is on the IL. I'm excited for Logan. Last time we saw him, he looks good. Woo's been holding it down. They're definitely not being talked about the way they were to start the season as possibly the best rotation in the game. Where do they stand with you today?
So part of what made the Mariners so impressive as a pitching group is how healthy everyone was staying, right? Now, that's been the biggest difference between this year and last year, with Miller now going on the IL, with Gilbert having missed time, with Kirby having missed time. That's the biggest difference. And availability is like, that's the whole thing with pitching, right? Now, I think the guys that have stepped in have performed admirably. I know we've seen only 6 starts from Logan Evans, and he's been good in those starts. Emerson Hancock has been up and down a little bit. But when you have these injuries, having that second line of depth is so important. I don't really have concern with the Mariners pitchers when healthy. I just have concern of these guys all staying healthy.
Jake, I love having you on today for many reasons, but for this one in particular. Bump and I have been having a conversation today off and on about the Mariners, and it's been one of frustration because what we're seeing is an offense that we kind of anticipated we'd see rearing its head in a time when you're begging it not to. And I find your Orioles to be a very interesting kind of flipped mirror image of the Mariners. Both of these teams knew exactly what they needed to do going into the offseason. Both of them took a risk that not everyone agreed with, and then we're watching the consequences of maybe that risk not paying off. I'm curious, from the point of view of a Baltimore fan, what risk did the Orioles take? Like, what were they trying to do, or what was the bet that they made, not really going after pitching? And then if you could apply the same kind of question to Seattle.
I mean, for the Mariners, it's we think we can get enough offense from the pieces we have. And for the Orioles, it was that, but with pitching. The difference is the Orioles went out and did spend some real money on pitching. I think that the biggest difference between these is that the Mariners have Cal Raleigh and the Orioles don't. And I know that Gunnar Henderson is a player who, when he's cooking with gas, is on that same level as Cal. But when you're a catcher, you're just touching so many different parts of the organization at one time. And what's frustrating for people in Baltimore is that Adley Rutschman was like supposed to be what Cal Raleigh is, and has been kind of below those expectations. And it's hard to see the Orioles fulfilling that potential if Rushman doesn't fulfill his potential. And so I think that's the biggest difference between these two teams right now, and why I think the Mariners, despite all the flaws, are going to stick around in the playoff mix, while I think the Orioles are going to end up selling at the deadline.
All-star voting is open. Or 5 times a day they can vote. Fans vote for your guys, and we do something called Hype Train, where we figure out if we're on the train with the statement that was said, or we're off the train or we don't agree with the statement. One of the hype trains was that the Mariners will have 2 All-Stars this year. I said no. I went 1, but then I forgot about Munoz and said, okay, when the train comes back around, I'm going to get back on.
You said shame on me.
Yeah. So what do you think? How many All-Stars do you think are on this squad?
So the line is 2.5, like for sure. And it's silly, right? Because Cal is just the biggest lock like ever. The dudes who I think could get in would be J.P. Bird, Julio, in addition to Munoz, who I think is probably a lock as well. The idea that we wouldn't have a Mariners starting pitcher at the All-Star game feels impossible, but also, given how the season has played out, seems likely now at this point. I will say 2. I think that the number of shortstops in the American League, with Henderson, Bobby Witt Jr., Jacob Wilson on the A's, Zach Neto on the Angels, Jeremy Pena on the Astros, is just going to be too much for JP to overcome.
Last one for me here. I don't like the Astros, which will not surprise you at all. And part of it is the same reason when I was younger that I hated the Yankees. It's just like a rich getting richer thing. And when you don't have that, growing up a Seahawks fan, you hate the Patriots. If you grow up in the 2000s, it's just it's straight jealousy. And any Astros fan calling me out for that, saying you're jealous, I'd say, yeah, and I don't know what else you want me to add to that. I need to hear an argument, Jake, from you. That there is a path that exists where the Mariners win the AL West and the Astros do not. I fundamentally, like in my bones, need to hear that take.
Does the path exist? Yeah. Are you going to find that path? No. You know that. And that's why you asked me the question.
Yeah.
You know, like the inevitability of the Houston Astros team for you and all Mariners fans is beyond infuriating, but that is the reality of the situation, right? And what's frustrating about it this year is that this Astros team, like, isn't that good compared to what we've seen. Yordan Alvarez has been hurt all year. Altuve's kind of washed now, and they're leading the division because Jeremy Pena has been amazing. Like, it's a very odd Astros team, a very new Astros team in some ways, but don't get it twisted. Like, they're going to break your heart again. And I wish I had better news for you.
That's okay. I mean, look, like I said earlier, it's when you understand the pain of a team failing you or a team, making frustrating decisions, it's easier to take that feedback versus, getting a Yanks fan on here who's like, yeah, I don't know. I couldn't be me. I'm so sorry.
But to be clear, like, that is, I think, why the Mariners' passivity in the winter is particularly frustrating this time. Because 3 years ago when the Astros were winning 100 games and the playoffs were smaller, there is an argument to, oh, well, you know what? Like, we're not going to surpass them. Yeah. Let's be smart. Let's hold our chips. Let's plan for the future. Let's save the resources. But now this division stinks and is wide open and is there for the taking. The Rangers have really disappointed. I have zero faith in the Angels. The Athletics just won their first series in like a month. And so there is a world for the first time that feels realistic of the Mariners winning this division, and yet they've just kind of lowered their level of intensity in terms of the roster construction to just match the overall mediocrity going on in that division.
All right. He is Yahoo Sports Jake Mintz. First of all, do you have a message you'd like us to pass along to your co-host Jordan tomorrow? And secondly, what should we expect from Baseball Barbiecast this week?
College World Series preview, which we're very excited about, which has a super fun narrative this year, which is that 3 of the teams from the RIP Pac-12 made it to Omaha for the College World Series with Oregon State, UCLA, and Arizona.
Bear down.
So
that's right.
you could kill the man, but you can't kill the idea. Yeah. So we're definitely going to talk about that this week. Pretty amped about it. And if you could just let Jordan know Next time I come on your guys' show, he shouldn't call me in the middle of it, which he just did.
Shame on you, Jordan.
Jordan
Have some
shoots me a
decorum.
FaceTime call 15 minutes ago. There you go.
Oh, Jordan. Okay, we'll let him know. We'll let him know how rude it. We'll save the sound and we'll play it for him so that he can know that we saw that and none of us appreciated it, frankly. He is Jake Mintz. Jake, thank you so much.
Thanks, Jake.
Thank you.